About that time, right? What's going, Rob? Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon, right?
Afternoon, yeah, right.
Just became 12 o'clock. Awesome. Okay. All right.
Coach will make an opening statement, and then, just like normal, just raise your hand. I'll call on you.
All right. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for coming today. Looks like you guys are just as excited as we are to get things rolling. There's a lot of other excitement going on campus as well, and I'd be crazy not to mention it because I think you guys see that as an athletic department in the university community, we're very family oriented, right? We make sure we're always supporting each other and always highlighting great things. So I know soccer, volleyball, and cross country have already gotten underway. So they're grinding at it. We're a little bit behind them. We're getting ready ourselves to start. And just want to welcome a couple of really notable new coaches. First of all, softball-wise, I know you guys have met Coach Lombardi, Missy Lombardi, and how excited we are about her. In the women's golf, on their team, Derek Bradley. Okay, well, Bradley, I'm sorry, welcoming him. Women's tennis, an alum, Courtney Nagel, coming back home to coach our women's tennis team, and Chelsea Gamble, who was just hired this past Wednesday to coach lacrosse. So a lot of exciting stuff going on in the other areas of the athletic department. And certainly we're fired up because after a great offseason, Coach Feld has done a great job with our football team, our leadership council, our players have done a really good job creating a type of culture that we want here at the University of Oregon in the football program. And a staff that has a ton of continuity that has been able now to focus on the next phase, on year 2 of a developmental process and making sure that we continue to elevate the standards of Oregon football. All those things combined have us excited beyond what words can describe. So here we are. Report date is today. Guys are taking care of all the compliance meetings they have to take care of, getting heighted, weighted, equipment distributed, getting all their new gear ready to roll. But certainly they're excited, and mainly because of the hard work that they have put into this offseason, and they see some pretty results coming down the line. So with that being said, certainly looking forward to answering questions and having some discussions. Good to see everybody. Okay, I hope to see you guys out there as often as possible. We certainly try to make it as accommodating as we possibly can to make sure you get what you need to make sure you get to know our football team, the players, the coaches, and some of the new faces. And by the way, there are some really important new faces in all aspects of our program, from a development standpoint, analysts that have coordinator experience at different universities, and all this does is just give us better chances to prepare our football team as people and as players for a great season and for a great life after football. So, but that being said, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Questions? Right here in the front, Ryan. Right over your shoulder, Ryan.
Mario, things were so hectic in December, and then obviously you had the bowl game recruiting. Since spring practices ended, do you feel like you're kind of comfortable in your new role now and ready for fall camp?
I don't know if the word comfortable ever settles in with coaches. I think coaches are always looking for the next step to improve, looking at the next phase of the day's regimen, the practice regimen for the week, how to figure out how to find a role for everybody. So comfortable and fired up and in a groove, that probably describes it best. We're in a rhythm. We are certainly process oriented, and the processes are smooth. They're intense. They're very structured, and everybody's involved in it. There's a lot of energy and passion involved in these processes, but yeah, we're set. We have a very good plan, one that we certainly have an experienced coaching staff, and at the same time, just feel very fortunate of the places and experiences that I've had in my career, particularly that last stop and the regimentation and the blueprint for practice and player development, because again, that's always going to be at the forefront as you head into camp. You have to be a much better team at the end of camp and at the end of game 1, 2, and 3, and so forth. And that's all a matter of making sure you're developing and creating ways for your team to improve. So I want to make sure that I gave you a long answer to a short question to start things off this season, all right?
On the right, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
There was so much talk in January about the off-season program and what you wanted to model it on. Now that we're at the kind of the tail end of that, could you assess how that went and how happy you are with how that Alabama modernization of the program?
Well, it's very excited. I mean, it's kind of neat that we've adopted it as the Oregon way, and the bodies have changed, and not so much the cosmetic beach muscles. I mean, it's obvious as you watch a guy like Justin walk by, he's 238 pounds or whatever he is right now, and they're changing. But more than anything, the amount of functional strength that has been developed, increasing our mobility, our flexibility, our ability to redirect, right, to make sure that we play with balance and body control. So many times as you're developing football players, you find that their feet aren't in the ground, their hands are outside. They have fundamental and just basic technical issues due to lack of development. Well, that's what has to be addressed in the offseason. And it starts with the way that we functionally screen each and every athlete. Our training department, our training room, they do a heck of a job now. I mean, every single one of them. Travis, Chief, Kim, Stephanie, I mean, they are on point. I wish I had them when I was coming up. Maybe I wouldn't have as many injuries as I had. But, combined with the strength room and, our sports science department, as well as our nutritionist, it's just been it's a group effort, and they cannot be out of sync. They have to work in parallels. They have, and we expect tremendous results.
In the middle, Rick?
Coach, one of the new wrinkles this year will be the new redshirt rule. How, as a staff, are you kind of incorporating that into your process this year?
Well, I think Joe Salavea never redshirted, so we might play him this year. Would look great at defensive line, right? The redshirt rule, it's a great idea. I think it's everyone's unanimously in favor of it, and for the right reasons. This is a developmental sport, and I can't recall the last time an NFL scout walked into any one of our meetings during the process looking forward to the draft. I don't recall a single NFL scout asking me, hey, I know he's a good player now, but how many games did he start as a freshman? Or how many plays did he make as a freshman? They want to see guys develop and go through a process. And that redshirt year, well, it does a couple things. Number one, from a development standpoint, there is no the risk in playing a guy to find out exactly where he may be when the lights do come on. Secondly, it allows your team to remain incentivized throughout the course of the season. I mean, how many times, and I'm guilty of it as well, when you redshirt early and, all right, it's game one, well, 12 more to go. Scout team, bam, every single day, right? Like peanut butter and jelly, the same thing every single day. Well, the development process now is real. It's almost like the developmental squad in the NFL where down the line, the opportunity, whether it be due to injury, whether it be to that player just having developed to a point where they can help us and actually contribute to the team, the opportunities are endless to not only help your team, but to prevent, a guy from losing an extra year of eligibility. And it certainly helps you plan differently. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we don't believe, at least, I know everyone has a different process. We don't believe that now because you have a red shirt, you just give away playing time. I think that would create the wrong kind of dynamic within the walls of our locker room. Playing time is still earned and has to be earned. But now when it's earned and you're kind of teetering, well, we don't want to burn his red shirt, blah, blah, blah. Now there is no longer that predicament. You can go ahead and play, and I think we're going to see some nice surprises.
On the right in the middle, Sam?
Yes, Coach, you sort of alluded a little bit to your last stop. I guess it was a big program, just a little bit. But anyways, you coached with Nick Saban, played for Dennis Erickson. Mm-hmm. What are the main things you learned from those guys, and how did they influence you as a coach and otherwise?
Yeah, that might be another press conference. It takes a little while to cover everything. The other one was Jimmy Johnson down there at the University of Miami, and he was the ultimate sports psychologist. I mean, he was that before how would you call it, the new age sports psychology departments have come into play. He actually majored in psychology, but everything was geared towards being in elite shape, having a tremendous mindset, team unity, and regimentation. And with regimentation comes discipline. He found the way in every single manner possible to create a competitive nature in our team. I mean, if we had the day off and he had a checkerboard out there, I mean, it almost like, well, if you lost in checkers, you're going to have to run 14 gassers after this checkers match. He was the ultimate competitor, and I think as football has progressed and all these different things come into play, roster size limitations, the APR, academic requirements, which are so important, right? It's changed the game for the better. The different rules that have come into play. Some of those things really were taken into account at that last stop I had. And all of a sudden, your regimen, your structure, your infrastructure, meaning the people that you hire within the walls and the different roles that those people have, well, it's now an all-encompassing life thing as opposed to just a football thing. And anytime you could take life and football and bring them together, because, I mean, we all know, I mean, we were there, right? 17, 18, 19, football, fun, touchdowns, everything. Well, sometimes we can't see past the front of our face, and we have to help kind of peel aside those walls and barriers to do so. And that's one of the biggest things that was learned. I mean, of course, you learn personnel assessment, you know, how you evaluate particular prospects and position groups, right, as it relates to size, speed, power, football IQ or whatnot. You learn a practice structure, which you'll see, well, you guys during that time, I don't think the media is out there, but you'll see a practice regimen where the fours are getting the exact same amount of reps and the quality of rep that the ones are getting. No one's missing a single rep. We talked about the off-season program already. That was probably the most important thing learned. I do believe that's a secret sauce. That's a secret sauce to the program because it creates your culture. And if your culture is strong and you start matching it with the right personnel and you make sure that your personnel use is what maximizes the team's output, you're going to have success. So it's a lot of stuff. I'll give you a little handbook, you know, after this thing, so for your review. But it's all positive, and it's been great being able to apply it.
A lot's been said about Justin and his potential or the year this season, but what's kind of your assessment of the guys behind him after spring ball and kind of where you're at going into fall camp?
That's a great question. We've touched on it a couple of times because those guys were impressive during spring camp. And you see those bodies are changing as well. I think, you know, I don't know how many of us could have survived the situation that Braxton was thrust into last year. That's hard now. Okay, that's hard. Things are coming at you 100 miles an hour in a brand new system as a true freshman. And one thing you saw about him, he was smart, he was tough, he played with courage. And when we got to spring ball, what you saw is a guy that could really run the offense the way it's supposed to be run. And so we're really excited about his progress and what he could mean to this football team down the stretch. And Tyler Shuck's done an incredible job as well. And both of these guys have placed themselves in a situation where it's not just, well, if Justin gets hurt, you know, these guys, can they help us manage the game? No, these guys can win football games here at Oregon. We have a lot of confidence in them. We still, and they still know they still have to continue to develop. But initially, spring, when we got into spring, pleasantly surprised at the end of spring, very happy and satisfied with their progress. So we're looking for a next step from them here in the fall.
On the right, Andrew?
I wanted to ask status of 3 players. One is Jalen Hall. Has he reported? And if not, do you expect him at fall camp at all? And then have you heard resolution from the NCAA about Malik Young and DJ Johnson if they can play this year?
Okay. Jalen Hall will not be on the roster as we open camp. Okay. Obviously, we support guys that have issues that they have to take care of 100%, but he will not be here for as we begin camp. Malik Young's extra year has not been granted. So Malik Young also will not be on the roster. Did you mention a third? DJ Johnson. He is he's on the roster, okay, but he will have to serve a year of residency before he plays. So he is he's had a great offseason as well, certainly doing a really good job academically. We expect him to be a great player down the line, but he will not be available to play this year.
Coach, can you kind of talk about fill the sleeves and how Coach Feld has, I know us in the media got to see a little bit of that in spring ball coming out in the freezing rain and being sleeveless, but can you talk about the positive impact that's had on your program? I know Twitter attention doesn't win you games, but what that's been able to bring attention to Oregon.
Sure. You know, I guess first note, Patrick over there, he's filling the sleeves. You see him over there. He's been working with Coach Feld. I think it's just energy coming out of our staff. I think if you watch our staff overall, whether it be through their Twitter personalities or what you see on a daily basis, they've got a lot of juice, and we encourage that. That's a big part of what we are here at Oregon. I mean, we're all different in our own ways. And look, when it's time to get together as a team and to have uniformity, 1,000%. But there's also, you know, opportunities to be yourself and let yourself be you. And, he's got a lot of juice. He's got a lot of energy. And you guys be the judge. I mean, if our staff and players, if you feel the sleeves are a little bit more filled up, then, maybe we'll give him a little bit of praise. But he's been very important to us. And it's worth mentioning all his assistants as well. Coach Davis, Coach File, Coach Williams. They've all done a really, really good job. Taylor, our nutritionist that has worked with our players. There's just a lot of enthusiasm about being in elite shape. And my old coach used to say that all the time. He said, the whole football thing, yes, there's some toughness involved and you've got to be smart. You've got to make good decisions. But he also said that, football has a way of rewarding those that are in elite shape. And that's become very important to our football players. And, during certain times of the year, we're not allowed to watch them work out. That's just, the rules are rules. But you come in on a Saturday, you're doing some work in the office, and you happen to go by the weight room and you see that your weight room is filled with your players. That's a cultural change for the positive. And again, we're pretty excited about that.
On the right, Tyson.
How much separation did you see from Tony Brooks-James versus some of the other younger running backs coming out of the spring? And do you envision an offense where you want to have one guy having 200-plus carries, or do you see it being a little bit more spread out throughout the season?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it separation. I see a lot of competitiveness there. And it starts with what TBJ has done with his game. He's really elevated his game. And, not only as a ball carrier, but as a blocker, as a physical presence. I mean, he's always kind of teetered in that 180 range, and now that body looks a lot different. And, running 10-2, 10-300 meter, he'll probably get upset. It's probably 10-1. I don't know what it is, but running those types of having that type of speed, and now adding an extra 10, 12, 13 pounds, getting with Coach Mastro, and Coach Mastro has done a great job just getting our guys to understand how we want to run the ball. And it all starts with eye discipline. I think when you combine all those factors and TBJ's want to, and the realization that this is his senior year, he's created a much better running back room, and the departure of a great one. We like to have, all those guys back. Those guys are good football players, but it's now time for these guys to show what they can do. And it's the competition is thick in the right type of way. So I wouldn't, before we put on those pads and start rolling, especially after an off season like we just had, I wouldn't even think about separation as it relates to different players. We want to make sure we give them an opportunity to let it play out and find a role for everybody.
My math might be off on who's not on scholarship, but I think you added about 15 walk-ons from this previous fall camp. Maybe just what's the significance of that big of a jump, and kind of how do you identify who can help you with the walk-on status?
Well, the walk-on program here is going to be a very big part of what we do at the University of Oregon, because, once you have a locker in there, it doesn't matter whether you walked on or if you were a 5-star athlete. I want to make that part extremely clear. The second part is we just don't bring in anybody, even if they are walking on and paying their own way. We scout and we recruit every single player on this roster, including the ones that have come on as walk-ons. We feel very fortunate with the ones that we have had walk-on, because we've got a couple guys that are pretty significant, pretty prominent track athletes that are in that 10-3, 10-4 range that increase our team speed right away. We have some big body linebackers and some edge rushers that we feel are going to have the opportunity to compete. So it's significant because now the quality of your team continues to improve, right? I think everybody knows, hey, look, these guys really separate themselves as the first 22, top 22 players, top 40 players. Well, what does 40 through 90 look like? What does 90 through 110 look like? So the quality of our team from top to bottom, the expectation and our goal is to make sure it's as high as it could be.
Coach, you are one of, as I count, 5 new coaches in the conference this year. That's a lot of turnover. This has always been a fairly stable conference in that respect. I was kind of curious.
Stable in football?
Well, there's been a lot of turnover as head coaches. Guys come here and kind of stay, but some of them. But anyway, with the 5 new coaches, how does that complicate your looking around the league and kind of game planning and seeing what is in store, and what are your thoughts of the Pac-12 this year?
Yeah, that's where these analyst hires, which we haven't touched on much, but it's important to do so. That's why they're so important, because, the month of May And the last part of April, that's our heavy recruiting time, right? We're on the road evaluating. I'm not, but the assistant coaches are. I'm not allowed to be. But what you'd like to do with that month is use it as efficiently, as wisely as you can. These guys take a deep dive into every opponent, especially as it relates to everything you just mentioned. New head coaches, new coordinators, places they've been, what they've run, who they're influenced by, who they're working with now, right? What have they done for the past 5 years? Because it's probably a pretty good indication of what they're going to be doing for the next couple of years to get us ahead in terms of recognition and familiarity of our opponents. Give us a chance to put together a preliminary game plan on our opponents as well. And that's where that manpower, comes into play. And these guys have done a really good job in helping us do so. And you have to. I think if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself in a time crunch come your game plan week. There's too many, I wouldn't call them subtle. There's too many differences and too many, I would say, wrinkles in the different schematically in the different offense and defensive schemes that we have seen and will see in the conference for you not to get a step ahead. In fact, during camp, once the first 7 days go by, we'll dedicate, a 12-minute period, 20-plus plays a day to a particular opponent and the 3 things that could present issues to us or for us. And why would you do that? Well, this is a cumulative rep type of learning process, right? We want those reps logged in the minds of our players, haven't seen at least one, even if they don't know who it is. Coach, what are we doing a spread option period for? This team doesn't, it might be because when we face so-and-so, those reps are going to come into play. But I hope that makes sense because that's a great question. It is always a challenge of the offseason. But if you do it right and if you're efficient, you have a chance to make it a big positive.
Front middle, right here, Austin.
Mario, I know you're totally focused on what's happening here, but with what's happened at Ohio State and you being a guy who's been a head coach before and now is transitioning back into that role, is there anything that you can take from that in terms of what the head coach has to do, being responsible, not just for himself, but everybody in the organization? And how do you do that when you're leading an organization that is so big?
Sure. You're responsible for a lot of people, and it starts with making sure that you hire and recruit the best people that you can, and it continues into the educational aspect. You always want to educate players, coaches, the people in your building as best you can. And I know it's a huge topic, very familiar with the situation. My comment on that would be that domestic violence can and never will be tolerated. It cannot be. So, but certainly your responsibilities, right? Your responsibilities are very wide ranging, and you have to make sure you're on top of them.
Andrew, right?
Yeah, I was just hoping you could define the program standards toward violence toward women, or even allegations of punishments that would stem from that. Just how do you approach that?
A zero tolerance policy is what it is. I think anytime you have any type of issue in your program, number one, you gather factual data, so that you could come to a decision along with the administration, of course, that fits the situation. But always base everything on facts, and you have to make sure you have hard line guidelines as it relates to certain things, and of course, that one of them being domestic violence.
Now that you're heading off into a full season, what sort of philosophy do you take in terms of addressing goals with your guys? Do you talk about championships you want to achieve? Do you talk about win totals? Do you talk about bowls you want to get to? What is your philosophy in terms of what you do and don't address?
We're good to go. I'm going to put your face right by that board too, right there. Our goals are set.
But how much do you actually talk about that with guys as you embark on the season?
Well, it is, but you stay process oriented. You certainly set the goals. You don't shy away from them. God forbid the fact that we should ever shy away from wanting to play for championships. If you do, you're at the wrong place. This is the University of Oregon, right? So that being important, but there is a process to get there. And taking a peek at the scoreboard, or taking a look at a result, or thinking about the fourth quarter when we're still in Series 2, Quarter 1, it's not going to get it done. Our team has to understand that. It's part of what we do from a practice standpoint, is understanding that if you trust the process and you grind and work at the process, eventually the process is going to love you back. It's going to take care of you. And we have a high trust factor in that right now. So I know our players are really looking forward to that.
Mario, are there areas on the team where you're searching for depth and you have either graduate transfers or true freshmen coming in that you're very hopeful will be able to fill some of those needs?
I don't think you're ever satisfied with depth. I think you're always going to look for quality depth. I know the one that was glaring, and the big question was always at wide receiver. I think we've put together a couple of pretty decent solutions, and the addition of a guy like Tabari Hines, Kano Dillon as well, big tight end. I think he's weighing in at a light 274 pounds. Certainly that helps at 6'5". The development of our current guys. I don't think it's easy to get lost in the fact that a guy like Brendan Schooler was playing defensive back in his first year, flipped over to wide receiver, was very productive, and just at the end of spring ball, he was so productive and so natural. Dylan Mitchell, we expect a big year from Dylan Mitchell as well. Guys like Jalen Redd, they're time to step up. Johnny Johnson, grinding at it. David Davis with his, minus that little funky dance he did in the spring game. You're looking at guys that have a lot of talent, and the nature of football when we're doing it right is as you develop guys, it's their turn. So we like to see guys step up there. The tight end position has been solidified more. Offensive lineman, we're always going to, make sure that the line of scrimmage is taken care of. You'd like more depth at the defensive line position. You would feel good about our front seven and the guys that roll out there when the ball is put down, but certainly would like more. I don't think you could ever have enough, great defensive linemen. Now, we feel good about these young linebackers coming in and learning the system and being able to contribute and play. And on the back end, we're probably a couple, bodies short, but not from a talent standpoint. We're pretty close to where we need to be. We're not that far off.
Right here, Tyson, front right.
When this facility opened up 5 years ago, it was pretty unique in its standing in college football. There just wasn't a whole lot like it. In the 5 years since, other programs have opened up, facilities similar to this, but kind of 5 years later, where do you see this facility, and how much do you kind of use it still on the recruiting pitch, and what's kind of the reaction you see from kids who do go to some of the other schools knocking over phones and
You're right. The arms race has gotten bigger and stronger and whatnot, and all I can say is the University of Oregon continues to have the very best facilities and the biggest commitment from a resource standpoint, administration standpoint, to providing our student athletes with the very best of everything to give them the best chance for success. We're very proud of that. And at the same time, we've really taught a sense of gratitude for that. Like, as you go around, if you walk around our players, the words please and thank you are pretty prominent words in their language. And they have to be, right? If you walk through their locker room, you'll see that, wow, that's a really, really nice locker room, but everything's in order, because they understand how appreciative we need to be, and because we'll throw their stuff out if they leave it on the floor. But besides that, they get it, and that's part of the culture as well. Having gratitude, being appreciative of this incredible place. If you walk through this building and you don't want to perform better, I'm pretty sure since the day I've been here, I've knocked down 2/10 off my 40 time, just being this athletic type of, just through osmosis, you know what I mean? So you can imagine these guys as they get to wear the best of the best equipment in Nike and apparel, as they get to train in the best facility, they get the care from the best training staff, and get to eat in the most incredible, fully organic kitchen that there is out there with a staff that, I could go on and on about it, but again, it's about gratitude.
All right, last question right here, Andrew, on the right.
There were a number of guys who just physically couldn't go the whole 15 practices during spring. Are there similar situations with guys who just won't physically be able to start camp for you?
To start camp, yeah, Tabari Hines, he did get nicked up. He had a minor, knee procedure, nothing major. He will be working individual drills within 5 or 6 days, and he will be available for game 1, and we expect to be full go by game 3. If there's ever an injury, I'm always going to do my best to get you, the information. Aside from that, I know Dexter Myers banged up his hand a little bit in some of these summer workouts, but I think he'll wear something protective, and he'll be he'll be out there and he'll be ready to go. Aside from that, Billy Gibson, new baby, into this world, so he'll be here probably a day or two later than what camp than our start camp date. We certainly support him, right? We've all, those of us that have had, it's kind of an important thing, when you have a child, you want to be there. So, but aside from that, I may be missing one or two. If I am, I'll make sure that we get that to you. Certainly want you to have that information. But aside from that, it's the guys that miss spring, like Samson and guys like Nick Pickett. Jake Hansen's back 100%, looks really good. I think everybody else is, they're chomping at the bit. We know that, but we're healthy and ready to go.
Thank you, Coach.
Everybody good? Guys, thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to seeing you out there, and feel free to bring the juice and fill the sleeves as best you can, all right?